Hola, hola, bienvenidos a un nuevo episodio del podcast El Regalo de Vivir. Quiero hacer una aclaración antes de iniciar con la entrevista que le realicé a Lael Berry. Y es que durante la entrevista yo cometí un error porque estuvimos hablando de un centro al que ella fue en el que experimentó pues diferentes modalidades de sanación y yo pronuncié mal el nombre de este lugar y quiero aclarar desde un principio este error que cometí y el lugar se llama Rythmia y yo lo decía mal. Ya verán en la entrevista cómo es que lo digo, pero mil disculpas, la verdad, pues al instituto, al centro de sanación, porque pues fue un error humano que se me chispoteó, como diríamos en mi tierra. Hasta aquí mi anuncio y iniciamos con el capítulo de la entrevista que le hice a Lael. Muchísimas gracias a todos y por aquí nos estamos viendo. Besitos. Hola a todos, bienvenidos al podcast El Regalo de Vivir. Yo soy su host, Valeria Reyes, y hoy tengo el placer y el honor de compartir un espacio con Lael Berry. No, me cuesta un poquito de trabajo pronunciar su nombre, pero Lael, ella es de Estados Unidos y pues se ha abierto este espacio, esta oportunidad de poder compartir juntas y ya saben que en este espacio busco compartir historias de vida real. Y pues si has hecho ayahuasca, medicina, pues también ese es un espacio en el que voy a compartir tu historia si es que estás con la apertura. Así que this is the case, este es el caso para Lael de compartir con todos ustedes. Esa entrevista pues la voy a estar haciendo en inglés, pero si estás en YouTube o en Spotify voy a poner el formato en video, así que te puedes poner los subtítulos aquí debajo para que no te pierdas de nada de lo que estamos compartiendo hoy. Así que, pues vamos a darle. Okay, yay, we made it. Thankfully, thanks so much. Thank you so much, Lael, for being here. I've known you for a little bit because, again, our friend Casey introduced us, and it was funny because when I think I was thinking about reaching out to you, and then the day that we went to yoga, I went to yoga with Casey. And then we were chatting in the morning, like, oh, yes, I reach out to Lael. And then we showed up to the studio and you were there. And I was like, okay, well, this is a sign. I don't think I have to postpone it. And so here we are. Thank you so much for giving your time and telling us your experience. I would like you to, first off, introduce yourself to the people, to the audience, so they get to know a little bit about yourself. You can share with them a bit of your background and why you're here. Let's see.
Okay.
Thank you.
My name is Lael. I live in San Diego. I'm a hairdresser. I'm an entrepreneur. I've had a really interesting journey, starting with a lot of trauma before the age of 19, and then went headfirst into a career and had a lot of hit a lot of my goals for that. And then the pandemic happened, and that really gave me an opportunity to take a step back from my career and really think about what I wanted outside of that. And one of the things that I knew I needed was to really do a lot of healing. And I had dabbled a little bit with plant medicine before COVID. My first experience was with combo, and then that led to some microdosing with mushrooms. And I knew about ayahuasca, but I was kind of searching for that opportunity and what felt right for me. And I took a sabbatical year, and one of my clients actually, we were talking about healing and plant medicine, and he recommended Rythmia. So I went there, and that was my first experience with that. It was absolutely life-changing, and my whole life has kind of shifted ever since then. So that's kind of it.
Yeah, thank you. So how was your experience in arrhythmia? Like, you knew about it. I've heard about it as well. So you decided to go there, and how was it over there?
Wow. I mean, it really is such a unique experience. Having had a couple different experiences, that experience in particular, especially for a first time, it was just such like a cocoon of support, and it was a lot of education before you even touch the medicine. And it was a really interesting blend of Western medicine psychology with plant medicine. So it helped me to feel really comfortable and safe because I knew what was kind of happening as far as like dealing with the trauma and the brain and the chemistry and the psychological side of things, mixed with, the stuff around the plant medicine that has been used for centuries. So it was, for me, a really comfortable blend of both. Plus, with all the education and the prep that goes beforehand, it was just a really great spot for nurturing healing. And they kind of, they have a very like put together program where each step has its purpose. And so before we even touched the medicine, I felt like I had a really good grasp of not what was going to happen, because that's so different for everybody, but at least what I was going to do and what the intentions were. And there was also a lot of support during ceremony where there were people there to support and help guide you. And then after the integration part was also there and supported as well. Plus, you're there for a whole week with the same group of people. So you're all kind of growing and sharing together. So it was a sense of community through that as well. Because I don't know if you've had experience of some of it is really brings up a lot of stuff. And so to have a community of people who were there doing the same thing was really, really nice.
How many were you in the group?
There was, I think, around 60 of us.
60?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So before you go into the experience, are you supposed to follow a protocol at home? Do you do the diet? What do you do exactly before?
Yeah, so before, they recommended about 30 days of doing a diet, which is basically like no substances, no caffeine, no tobacco, no marijuana. And then it was diet, which was, I don't eat meat already, but I don't know if it was meat or not, but very, very clean.
Okay. Vegetarian or vegan or not necessarily?
I don't remember because I already am vegetarian, most little pescatarian. So I can't remember if it was meat or not. But for me, yeah, it was very easy. The hardest thing for me, and I'll be honest, was like the other stuff, the coffee, the nicotine, the marijuana. But having all of that cleansed out, you really do feel good. And then, yeah, so we had the diet, and then I think we were there for 3 days. Yeah, 3 days before we even touched the medicine. So it's a lot of breath work, a lot of detoxing. They do, what is it, like colonics? And so it's a lot of that like cleansing, detoxing before. And then really working on your intentions. Like, why are you there? What do you want out of it? I remember when you first get there and they have this like labyrinth and they give you this bracelet with beads on it, and you're supposed to like 3 things that you want to go away with and then 3 things that you want to leave behind. And as you're walking through the labyrinth, they had like different spots to like drop the things you want to leave. And then on your way out, you're picking things up. And that was just kind of sets the tone. And then breath work. I mean, the first night of breath work there for me was like, I had such a powerful awareness and release that I was like, well, gosh, if this can happen with breath work, what am I in for? And so it was exciting, and it was really, really special. So yeah, it's like just all the prep beforehand was, getting you in that space of where, your body's clear of toxins and then your mind gets clear, and then you go in for the big one.
How many ceremonies did you do?
We sat with the medicine 4 nights.
4 nights in a row?
In a row. Wow. Yeah, 4 nights in a row.
Same dosage, or did you go up? Or
I had different dosages every night. Again, and I think each batch or each night, the batch was a little bit different as well. And I had a completely different experience every single night as well. And so I think the first night, I think I had 3 cups. The second night I had 2. The third night I had 1 and like just was out. And we can go into the nada if we want to.
Yeah.
And then the fourth night, it's all night. So we start at 7 p.m. and then the ceremony goes all the night, straight through the morning, right into breakfast. And I had a lot of fear around that one because I'm like, oh gosh, this is a lot. But, you know, you have to just surrender to the medicine and know that, you know, it's nurturing. It's Mother Ayahuasca. So yeah, it was a lot.
Is it accompanied by live music? Or
Yeah, they did live music, a lot of drumming.
do they do Icaros, you know, like the nature sounds? Or is
They
it
did I mean, every night was different. A lot, and they had like the last night was like a big band and a lot of drumming, and it was very powerful. One of the nights, I think it was the second night. It was the second night. They had these like chimes, and it was like the most magical thing. It was at the end of the ceremony, and it was just like, it was so intense. And then these like chimes, it was like little fairy noises, and it was just so calming and beautiful. And I remember, you know, and they'd come around and kind of work individually, and I just remember feeling like such like peace, and it was just so beautiful. Now anytime I hear those, I'm like, it just really like brings you right back. So yeah.
how balanced did you feel that the experience was? Like I personally resonate more towards having it more grounded, but I'm curious about how was the experience in Arrhythmia?
I feel like it was a really good blend of both. They were shamans.
Okay.
Each one had one. One night there was 2. And I really loved that. But it was also very grounding. I think with the balance of like the Western and the, you know, ancient culture it was very grounding because it wasn't, you know, sometimes if people feel like, oh, well, like I'm not woo-woo, that's like, I don't want to do the shaman thing. But the medicine comes from that culture. And so there's something really special about having that there. And then also having all the other stuff to balance that out. So it was both. And I had a second experience, and it was, you know, very different, but still it was more grounding, less shaman, more just grounding, but still music. And, but yeah, it was a really nice blend of both, I think.
And so going back to the intentions that you had, did you feel that, I don't want to say like, oh, this is a magical cure for everything, and it's just it's going to help you bring to reality all of your dreams or heal everything. But if you go back to the Arrhythmia experience and the things that you wanted to let go and the things that you wanted to create in your life, did those come into fruition? Do you feel that that was the case?
Yeah, you know, Rhythmia it's like such a well-organized thing. And so they actually support you with intentions. You know, you can have your own, but they kind of map out some intentions for you and then give you the reason behind why. So I went with their intentions. One of the night, it was the second night, I went in with my own because I had some stuff that I wanted to like clarify from the night before. So I had my own intention the second night and then the other 2 nights. And like I said, they have their intentions with their reason why, and it is incredibly powerful. I think the first one was show me what I've become or who I've become. And then my second one, because the first night really highlighted the fact that I've, you know, couldn't trust anyone, much less myself. So the second night I went in with like, show me how to trust. And that night was like so different from the first night. It was so nurturing and very loving. And I kind of went through different points in my life that were very traumatic, but it was the other side, the not traumatic things. That was like there was good in all of that as well. I think our brains tend to hold on to the trauma, and that's stored in our bodies. So I felt like that was really cool. The third night, I can't remember at this moment, but the fourth night is merge me with my soul. Because one of the things that they teach is, in Western psychology, there is a split from, some people say 0 to 7, some say 7 to 12. And either way, before you're 12, if you experience trauma, you have a split between your soul and then it comes your personality. And that your personality is kind of the mask you wear. And your soul is always there, but it's hidden behind this mask. And so when you merge the soul and you together, you become your highest self. And as someone who had a huge disconnect from, I didn't feel anything, no emotion. I had disconnected completely from my body, from that feeling. So to have that merge happen and to feel again was like, it was very overwhelming at first because I was like integrating back into my body really, and feeling things for the first time in a really long time. So that integration was awesome, but it was also like really, I had to like really be at home by myself for a lot of times because it was just overwhelming. But as that integrated in and I kind of balanced out, now it's like, it's really amazing how connected I feel to my body and to emotion. And I believe that came from that night of like really pushing that merge together.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds incredible. Wow. So when you come back, when you finish the experience, there are so many things I want to ask you. So when you came back to your place, I think the integration is even more important than the experience itself. How did you integrate the whole week, the experiences? You just shared that it took some time for you to start like getting into your body and feeling, and like you open up like maybe a Pandora box, and everything just was like out there, and you were like taking everything like piece by piece. How did it go for you?
Well, I think when I first came back, I felt so like open and like you feel so connected. And then that became overwhelming for me because when you're feeling for the first time in a long time, to regulate that and like actually feel it and sit with the feelings. So yoga was a huge part of integration for me. Again, the mind-body connection. And then so yoga was huge. Journaling was massive, just like writing things out. A lot of my integration was around journaling, and it's amazing when sometimes you just start putting pen to paper with no real agenda, what comes out. I mean, I've had repressed memories come out through that. So that's really, really powerful. And then community. I think diving into a community who understands and supports and has been through that to kind of help ground you. Meditation, breath work still is a big part of my life, and it was a big part of my integration.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever, when you came back, did you ever think like, because I feel like some people when they do ayahuasca and they're such a powerful experiences, they may not be prepared to see all the things that they were shown to them. Did you ever experience that, or was it always like, because they did such a good job in arrhythmia that they sort of like prepared you for whatever was going to happen after? Was that your experience, that you sort of knew how to navigate the things that were coming? Like the PDF, a friend of mine says like, oh, it's just like a PDF and it's downloading. Like it just takes some time for the PDFs to completely download. And it'll be like a few months from the moment you first started with the medicine that it's going to completely show up, or you'll understand completely. For me, it's been a year. So I started last year, and this year I'm understanding some of the lessons that she was trying to teach me from the beginning. So how has it been for you?
Well, and I think that's the interesting thing. When you have the ceremony, it's a lot, right? So it's a lot to unpack. I think the support and integration that Rythmia has is really helpful for that, because you have like integration classes after where you can share and ask questions and that kind of stuff. So that was really helpful, but also you get downloads later, or something that happened there. You're like, oh my gosh, you see it again in your life, but you see it. It's like you're watching yourself do the thing that you were shown, and then you're like, wait a minute, okay, now I see it. And then it's taking the steps to integrate that lesson, however that is. And yeah, I mean, I don't think it's ever over. I mean, I just did 3 ceremonies in August, and I'm still getting stuff from that. Like, it was a very powerful experience, very, very different experience. I think that's the interesting thing with plant medicine is it's going to show you what you need to be shown. And it's layered, right? So it kind of I feel like my first 4 ceremonies like peeled back the layers. I merged back with my soul. The second one was really, really intense, but so powerful. It was more of the like mirror in your face of like, all right, you want to like get serious about your healing. This is it. Okay. And my intentions were different. I actually reached out to a friend that I had been at Rythmia with, and she had been in multiple times. And so I was like, what are some good intentions? I have my ideas, but went in with different intentions, and it was a very different experience, but I was ready for that. She meets you where you're at. Yeah. And had I had that second experience the first time, it probably wouldn't have been so great. But yeah, it knew what I needed then. It knew what I needed this last time. And, if I go again, it will meet me there again. And so, yeah, it's just every time has been very different. And the integration is, years. I mean, it took me 2 years to go back because I was still getting the like awareness, and it was still a life-changing experience, and I didn't go back because it was like, I mean, I've done a lot of personal development stuff, and sometimes you can be in that cocoon and then it wears off and then you kind of have to go back. This, for me, was not like that. It was like a very lasting change that kept working. And the second time I went back, it was because I wanted to go deeper, not because I wanted to feel something again. It was like, okay, I'm at a point where I'm ready for that. And it's such a great tool to just bust in where it needs to be released.
Thank you for sharing that. I personally, in my experience, I've had powerful experiences, but I haven't done like the 4 things, like the 4 ceremonies in a row, or I feel like the approach that I've been taking over here down in Mexico, it's very different from the one that you took in Arrhythmia. And I also, in my case, I do tend to forget. And that's one of the things that they really tell you, like the facilitators, they're like, one of the main thing is that it's like you always have to you have to remember what you experienced during the ceremony, because that's, as you said, like it's gonna wear off over time, and that's usually the reason why I tend to come back. So I'm working on that as well. I'm like, okay, how can I stay within? How can I be my own medicine, right, throughout this whole journey? So thank you for the reminder of that. And I want to ask you, why did you decide to go and do the ceremony?
I think for me, because of the trauma that I had experienced, I, at 20 years old, put myself in traditional therapy. I have complex PTSD, so I was in EMDR, like any kind of traditional psychology therapy, you name it, I've done it. And it was all very, very powerful. But it got to a point where it was like, now I've identified the traumas. I've identified to the moment where the disconnect from my body happened. I've helped, EMDR really helped to notice when I was triggered and to kind of regulate the nervous system. But there was like this cognitive knowledge of why all of these things were happening, but it was like, where's the healing? How can I get to that? And I couldn't find that in traditional Western medicine culture. Again, I'm not saying it was all very relative and helpful, and I think got me to the point where I was ready for the next step. But it for me, it was just like a very innate calling. I do have a very strong inner internal guidance, and I feel like when things come around, I pay attention. And so it just kept coming into my, energy field, whether it was other people sharing their experience or, and it just like kept coming. And so it was like, okay, I'm listening. I think some of my earliest trauma was religious trauma. So I'm a little hesitant when there's like a group thing. I'm like, ugh. Especially something like Rythmia. Even when you're there, you're like, whoa, what am I doing here? But you just really have to surrender. So it just kept coming up. And so I just, at one point was like, okay, I see this. I know it's coming up. Show me the right opportunity. And it's really interesting as a hairdresser. Oftentimes I say like, I need this in my life or bring someone or this opportunity. And I'm telling you, every single time they end up in my salon chair, and it just naturally happens in conversation. And then there it is. I can't tell every time that's happened. So that there's that, magical connection of the universe and people, and it's divine timing, I believe. When you're ready, and for me, it's like once I get a very strong yes, and then I'm like, head first, let's go. Like, when I decided on Rythmia, I went to the website really quick and I was there within a month.
Oh, wow.
So it wasn't a lot of thinking, but it was probably 2 years from when I had done combo, and I had done a few sessions with that. It took a couple years for me to be like, feel that this was the right spot.
I see. And how about the combo experience? How was it? Because I've done it and it's been pretty brutal in my case. Yep. How was it for you?
Brutal is like the only way that I can describe it. The best part about it is it's a relatively short experience as far as plant medicine goes. For me, it was like a lot more buildup and prep to that. It was also my first like real experience with like shaman and plant medicine. But that one, we sat 3 times one weekend. Or no. I've sat with it 3 times, and it was like spaced out over a month. And it's really intense. For me, it was a very physical purge. When they take and burn in your meridians. Okay, so you must have done it fairly recently. I don't think mine's there still.
No, I think it's just my skin. It's what some of
maybe
these
there might be one.
Oh yeah. I don't know, dude.
I know. But yeah, starting with like drinking all the water beforehand.
Oh my God, that's
difficult. Really, really high. What is it? 2 liters right before. Yeah. So there's a lot of anticipation, and then you're like drinking all of this water. So the first one was incredibly intense for me. And I don't know if you've heard the term of frog face.
No.
That comes from combo, because they tell you to sit up, right? And yeah. I was like, it was so violent for me that I was just like, my head was below my heart and I was so swollen. And you kind of look like a frog. It doesn't happen to everybody, but if you don't pay attention to the directions of like when you're actually purging, it just, because it's a vasoconstrictor. So it's like, fluid buildup. But yeah, it was quick. But that was actually such a powerful experience. That first time I had quit smoking, I just didn't ever want it again.
After the ceremony of Cambo.
The first one.
Oh, no.
And then at the end of the ceremony, when you're kind of all like recovering, they have this medicine, and I don't know what it's called. Maybe you do. It goes in your eye.
Yes, it's potus?
I have no idea what it's called, but it's
No.
like battery acid.
Oh, sananga.
Yes.
Sananga.
Yes.
Sananga.
If I put
Potus is for the nose, I think. I might be completely, I don't know. Sananga, it burns, but
Oh my
it's
gosh.
doable, no?
Well, yes, but up until that point, because I was so disconnected from my body, so disconnected from my emotions, I really didn't cry. Up until that point, if I had, and it was always oddly my right eye, if I had like one tear that I was like, okay, I cried, I did it, like that.
Dear.
One. And it was never the left eye. And I don't know, maybe someone someday can explain to me why that is. But the second he put in my eye, it was like water burst out. Like, I mean, he was even like, whoa.
Wow.
And from that moment, I've been able to cry. And then from each plant medicine, the walls and the disconnect from the emotions have pulled away and pulled away. When I first came back from Rythmia, it was like I could see a dog and be like, oh, it's just so beautiful. And that's why that integration was so intense, because I'm like, I feel everything. Like, how do people function like this? So I had to learn how to manage feeling for the first time. But yeah, that was the first time that I had cried in like properly in a really long time. And it was weird. It like burst out of me. Yeah. And then so the other two times, were intense. But there was, I think those kinds of things were more at that time. I had, prior to COVID, I was working like 85 hours a week and traveling, and it took a number on my health. And I think also all of the trauma that I wasn't releasing because I wasn't feeling it, it was really taking a toll on my body. I was working with naturopaths for like a year and a half to regulate hormones and that kind of stuff. And then I did the combo. And once I did the 3 sessions of that, it was like my body just kind of clicked back into alignment. And then even every ayahuasca treatment, there have been certain things in my body that have been completely healed. And some of them are a little embarrassing.
We're not medicals, professionals.
No.
We're just sharing information. That's it. I'm going to put the disclaimer down there.
Right. Just what happened with me. A lot of mine was gut issues.
Oh, well,
A lot of gut
I've had a lot of gut issues, and I'm still healing from that. That's why all of this started.
Yeah. And I think that's, whatever ailment is drawing you to it. I mean, I used to be so just bloated. Like, there'd be times where I would look like I was 6 months into pregnancy because I was just bloated. But at the same time, I was so thin everywhere else because food would just go right through me. It was like, and this may be a little TMI, but truly, I would eat something and within an hour, you'd see it. It was like it was not being digested at all. So combo and the naturopaths really help with that. And then for me, there was some, it's all gut related, so it can get a little.
Oh my gosh, no.
Little
TMI. I'm all ears for gut health because I've personally, all the life changes that I've done have started because I had such a bad GI problem. Like, I had horrible gut pain and inflammation and just like not only bloating, but pain and episodes of diarrhea. And I used to be in bed like maybe half of the month because I was miserable. And I reached to a point where I can have a functional life. But before, maybe 6 years ago or 7 years ago, I was in the worst place in my life. And I don't even know how I pushed through, but I did. And I decided to do ayahuasca because even though I had cancer, my gut was still a pain in the ass. So I started ayahuasca because of that. Because I was like, okay, I've done everything I can. I tried so many different therapies. My gut keeps being so bad my digestion is horrible, I'll go with ayahuasca. And I cannot say, and I also did Cambo. I did Cambo 3 sessions before ayahuasca within a week or something like that. But I never get like 10, like the 10 spots. I always get like 4 spots, like burn, like places where they burn your skin. Oh, by the way, I haven't explained what Cambo is. Cambo is a venom from a frog. I'm not an expert on this, but it's a venom from a frog found in the Amazonas. And the story says that somebody who was doing ayahuasca many, many years ago, they were instructed by the medicine and to go and look after the venom from the frog, and that was going to help them heal their physical ailments. And that's how Cambo was discovered. And people in the Amazonas have been using it for many, many years, and we continue to use it. And so I decided to give it a try. When I decided to do Cambo, I was going under the immunotherapy treatments last year. And it was pretty brutal with me, with my body. And yeah, that's why I decided to do ayahuasca, because I wanted to improve my gut health. I'm slowly getting there, but I'm still working on it. So anything that you want to share about it, this is the space to do it, because I don't mind at all. So I'm very happy. I'm very happy that that's worked for you.
Yeah, I mean, it was life-changing. I mean, I'll tell you, there was a period of like probably 5 to 6 years where I don't think I had a solid poop.
Wow.
And it was just, I just got used to that. It was like I knew if I was going to eat, I needed to be near a bathroom very quickly.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter what I ate. It was bad. So that really got my gut back in health. And then I don't know if you've ever come across this, but at Rythmia, they teach you that there's, every experience is uniquely different and changes from time to time, from ceremony to ceremony. But there is like a few things that collectively people have reported experiencing, right? One is purging, which is pretty common. Another is what shows up is different, but they call it like a surgery, where like tiny men or minions or whatever it is come in and they
perform something, no?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the first time I sat with ayahuasca, I had that. And it was all in my gut. It was like thousands and thousands of tiny things like rowing, and it was like a machine, and it was like, that was one part of my first experience. So that was a lot around my gut. And then there's also a nada, which is when the medicine takes you right out. And you are like, you're just out. Like you don't move, you don't. And that night for me, it was just 1 cup. And I had so many, the first night was 3. I think the second night was 2. This third night was 1. And I remember hearing the call for the second cup, and I was like, it was like I wanted to get up, but I felt so heavy. And then the next thing I knew, it was, 4:00 in the morning, ceremony was over, and I was like, what happened? Did I really just sleep through that whole thing? But one of the things that they teach is that a nada is really one of the most powerful healings, because it's like anesthesia. They put you out, whether the trauma that you're healing is too intense for you to relive and re-experience, or it's ancestral and it would be terrifying to have to experience it. So it's like they put you out, and then they do all the, the healing happens with you not being conscious.
Wow.
And then I think there's one more, but those are the ones that I've experienced. Yeah. So it's that all that to say, the little men were in my gut working.
And did you feel an immediate response after the ayahuasca ceremonies in your health, in your gut health in particular?
Absolutely. I mean, I felt it from combo, but then ayahuasca was like I didn't have any more problems. And I think, obviously I'm not a doctor, I'm not anything, but I feel like a lot of my emotional trauma was really stored in my gut. And so as that was being cleared out and healed, it was rebalanced.
Wow. So that hasn't been my experience, but I wish, that's why this whole year, starting from last year, I devoted into this practice, going regularly to the ayahuasca ceremony. But even though I haven't felt the immediate reaction in my gut, I feel like because the ayahuasca works in the mental, emotional level, at the end of the day, those aspects are the things that are going to help you heal.
Mm-hmm.
Like creating habits or changing something in your life that is not supporting your health. Like ayahuasca is going to show it to you in a way that it's going to be easier in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Or I don't know, for me, she really helped me to stop being a victim of my personal struggles, in particular with my health. And she showed me how I really needed to create experiences and create a life, even though, or regardless of however my situation was physically. She was like, Valeria, are you going to be mad the whole time? Are you going to live like that for the rest of your life? Being mad at God because he's not healing you, because you're not healthy as everybody else? She was like, are you going to continue doing that? Like, what are you getting out of it? Nothing. So just stop.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a very beautiful moment because she shared it with me as a story, as a children's story, like a book. What is it called? Forget the word. Cuento. It's in Spanish. Anyway, and she shared with me the story, and I was writing it, right? And it was very. So I'll share it with you really quickly. I think I told you the story. No, I shared it with someone. I don't remember who exactly that was, but I was a little girl, and she was saying, like, there was this little girl named Valeria, and she went on this journey to try to heal herself, and she went on this magical road, and she put on her helmet and the what is it called, like the whatever the soldiers use, like the medieval,
like armor,
yeah, out of metal. And she went on this journey to try to heal herself, and then she went on and on and on and tried so many different things. But then at the end of the day, she realized that she couldn't heal herself. And so she removed the armor. She came back home, and she was disappointed and mad at herself. And she was mad at God because they didn't help her. And she realized that she couldn't do this by herself, but she just stayed mad. And the end of the story, as I was writing it, I hope like she's going to heal herself at some point. But then ayahuasca was like, the end. And that's how she ended up. That's how she grew old, and she was still unhealthy, and she was mad, and she was like angry with everybody else. And when I finished the story, like, I was like, dude, like, am I gonna really live life like that, being angry at everybody and myself? And so that's when I decided, okay, Valeria, I'm not gonna be the victim out of my situation, so I'll make the best out of it. And I'll do whatever I can to create a life that's bringing me joy. And so here I am. Anyway, thank you.
I love that story. And it's so interesting because I had same awareness of like, you get to choose how you show up. And that's what she was teaching me. Like, all these times that you have been bitter, angry, mad, annoyed, all of those things, you've chosen that. You're not the victim of your circumstance. You're the victim of your thoughts and your perspective. And so it was like, again, it was like this mirror. Like, you want to be angry, you want to be irritated, you want to, like, that's fine. You can do that, but you're choosing that. Nobody's doing that for you. It's not the things that have happened in your life. It's you. And so it was like very humbling because you're like, oh, yeah, I am what's in between me and what I want. And if you can either take that and, there's even times life gets hard, and I'm telling you, as life-changing as all of this is, I think a lot of people think that like healing leads to enlightenment and you never experience bad emotions or anything like that. But when you're triggered, it's just showing you where you need to heal more. And when you're hyper aware of it too, it feels like all the time, like, why do, and it's life. You still are human. You still have the same struggles, but now you have the awareness of like, okay, in this moment, I can sit here, feel the emotion, let myself experience it rather than avoiding it or feeling like I shouldn't feel this way because that's wrong or bad or whatever. Saying like, you know what? I'm pissed right now, or I'm sad, or I'm angry, or I'm jealous, or whatever it is. And for me, I can, close my eyes and ask my body, where is that in my body? Where am I feeling it? And then for me, I also, once I have identified the space, I kind of sit with that feeling and ask it, like, when is the first time you felt this? And for me, my mind always goes straight to a circumstance, and then I kind of walk myself around like, what was the situation? What was the feeling? How do I wish that situation was different? And what is the feeling that I want to have? And then it just kind of shifts. So it's sitting with the feeling, acknowledging the feeling, and really moving through it. And that's been, a way that I've tapped into keeping having the awareness that happens during ayahuasca kind of keep coming with me by using those tools that we have from the awarenesses that we gained at the time, then to go back and again feel it in our body, because I believe that stuff is stored. And again, when you're feeling triggered or feeling an emotion, it's a mirror of where you still need healing.
I love it. Totally. So I struggle with that in particular because I tend to neglect the way I'm feeling. And so I'm working on it as of now.
It's always a journey. Trust me, I have moments, it will take me weeks to be like, oh yeah, I have this tool.
Yeah.
And I've been avoiding or resisting the feelings instead of allowing myself the space.
Yeah,
so
but it's totally, it does work because when you don't allow yourself to feel a certain way, it's like that emotion, that truth, it just wants to come out.
Yeah.
And so whatever you try to do is just going to keep pushing it away, but it's not going anywhere. It's just there waiting for you to acknowledge it so that you can learn whatever lesson it's trying to teach you. So that may make me feel uncomfortable because I'm supposed to be, a certain person or have a certain reaction. So if that comes out of the way or it's not as pleasant for everybody else, I try to avoid it or resist it or do anything in my power to just, it's like nothing, like try to make it less than it actually is. So this is also a very good reminder. So thank you.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about, we haven't touched on this topic, but I know that you've had your childhood, like growing up, has been a difficult experience. And if you can share briefly with us how that was for you. And I want to focus more on the aspects that have helped you heal. I know that ayahuasca is one of them, but how do you look back into those experiences and how can you be at peace with such a hardship in your life?
So I think in a lot of Western psychology, there's a term that they call the ACEs. Are you familiar with that? So the ACEs are different types of abuse. They go from religious, sexual, mental, emotional, and physical. And then there's one more. Mental, physical, emotional, sexual, substance.
Okay.
Substance abuse. And, you know, when you're being diagnosed or whatever, there's usually a few. I had all 5 before I was 19. And so it started with a lot of mental, emotional. So the 5 ACEs, I think I misspoke about the first one. I added religious trauma, and it's not. It's mental, physical, emotional, sexual, and substance.
Okay.
So I had all 5 of those before. So that started with mental and emotional, and that was religious based. I grew up in a religious cult, and I will kind of preface there's a whole list of there's a checklist of cult criteria, and I'll just say one, and that one is if you are excommunicated, or in our culture it was disfellowshipped for leaving, that's a marker of a cult. And so for me, that's where that line is drawn. And that's really at the point when I noticed that things were, you know, because up until a certain point, it's just what you are raised in. It's what all you really know. And these are very closed communities. And so, yeah, there was a lot of emotional, mental, because it was, you know, there was a lot of shame, guilt. I personally, it was like, you're never really good enough because the bar is perfection. And every time you misstepped, it was like that, you know, it was just, and, you know, that very broadly going over the experience.
Yeah.
And then because of that, I had, when I was about 11, 12, 2 of my best friends and their families and there was probably, you know, 30 to 50 people there was this big group of people who left the community. And 2 of them were my very best friends. And that one day they were my best friends. And then the next day I was told that I was to disfellowship them, which meant that I couldn't speak to them. If I saw them in public, I wasn't allowed to talk to them. It was like a complete death. And it was like they no longer exist to you. And that was my first what? This doesn't resonate for me. And that's when I kind of did a lot of pushback, and kind of went head to head with my parents, with leadership. And then it was around 15 and a half where I was, you know, deemed a lost cause and, you know, rejected by my family as well. And of course the community. And so when you have that kind of rejection and also, you know, abuse, that's all you know. So when you come in contact with abusers, it's comfortable because you're like, I know what this is. I know how to relate in this situation. So the cycle of abuse continues. And that's when, you know, there was sexual and then physical and more mental and emotional. And when I got out of that at 19, that's when I was like, I can't live like this. I mean, nobody can. You know, at one point, the physical abuse was so bad that I literally thought that they would kill me. So yeah, it was a lot of that abuse, and then it was like that wake up point of like, I'm not doing this. I've got to get out of these patterns, and that's when I started with therapy, and then EMDR and neuro-linguistic programming, and did all that, and then I found plant medicine, which was really helpful. And, you know, all the other stuff was really great for cognitive knowing, and identifying when certain disconnections or patterns were created, because I think there's a lot of power in knowing that. And then with neurolinguistic programming, you actually go back to those moments and replay them and then change them. And then, because our brains only remember a situation from the last time we recall them. So when you do that, that implants the new memory around it, and then you're kind of able to move forward. So again, it's all mentally very helpful. But what was missing for me was that emotional connection. And that's what plant medicine did for me. It was like that connect of my body and emotion and what I would call a soul. And then, I think that's when the actual emotions were brought up and moved through and out and healed.
So from what you're sharing with me, what I'm interpreting is that you can go up to a point this was your experience, that where you have like the theoretical aspects of how you should feel or how you should heal or how you should like identify the trigger.
Mm-hmm.
Oop, my tripa. And but then the ultimate healing or the truth healing, you experienced it once you've embodied those that knowledge or that cognitive aspects. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah, for me, that's how it was. It was like, I had a very cognitive understanding, and I feel like there's a difference in knowing and then like knowing within every ounce of your being. And a lot of that is just coming back to love and remembering your wholeness, your worthiness, your, all of those things were, for me, my experience. And I mean, plant medicine gave me that like down to my soul, every ounce of my being knowing. And that's really a powerful connection.
I love it because having gone through such a hardship, like having gone through such a difficult childhood and being in this environment where you cannot discern from what's good or bad or what's going to help you have like a positive experience within yourself and with your family. I mean, I can't really imagine, like, it's just, this is something that you see in the TV or something. For me, I have to be honest, like for me it's like so surreal. So I'm sorry that you had to go through this, but I'm glad that you have found the tools that have helped you to move forward and be the person who you are now, because it's just, it has taught you so many different things.
Yeah. I think, I don't know if it's an innate thing. I kind of mentioned it before, but I kind of have this like internal compass that is very strong for me. And even at that age, I mean, I have the family, one of the family members who left at that time, the mom of my best friend, she'll ask me like, because they were in their like 40s when they found the courage and the, gumption to move away from the community. She's like, how did you do that? Like, and I'm like, I just knew it was wrong. And to me, I have this very like principle, like this is wrong, I'm not doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was miserable. It was a very long 3 years of a lot of what I look back at as emotional and mental abuse, trying to get me to conform and, exorcism, or they called it, what did they call it? Like, anyways, basically casting demons out of you, because I had demons that were making me question and come against them. And so, I mean, that's traumatizing. I was a child being told that demons were living inside of me because I wanted to be friends with people who were my sisters, So it'll mess with your head. And then, not really sure where I was going with the rest of that, but there's this internal innate thing that I have. And then also, without all of these experiences, I wouldn't be who I am. I wouldn't be where I am in my life. And I wouldn't know myself the way that I do, trying to unravel all of that trauma that happened. And I think the best part about all of that is that I can come and share that with you and your audience, and hopefully inspire or, give people the permission, maybe. Some people feel like they need permission to find that part of yourself and heal and grow and move forward to, taking that and using that as a catalyst to choose and be something different.
I agree 100%. And that brings me back to one of my missions or goals, is that people become their own advocates and they learn how to trust themselves. And even though I'm going through the same journey of maybe doubting myself, but to choose every day to trust my instincts, or to trust this inner knowing that is guiding me. And just like the Wicked movie, I don't know if you've seen it. Yeah, but it's just like Elphaba, like I'm Elphaba, and I'm trying to, like, she's going through this when she was very disappointed, spoilers here, she was really disappointed with, and she was struggling with how they treated the teacher, and she just cares, and there's nothing in her that's gonna let it pass. And she's like, I wish I didn't care, but I care. So for me, it's like every day, like if there's something within you that is telling you like something is not right, pay attention to that. It's just like that's your goal. That's your essence, or your higher self, or something within you that is trying to tell you that what's gonna be best for you. So yeah, I think that's what's gonna help us at the end to become who we are truly supposed to be, because it's just this inner knowing. So yeah, if you haven't watched Wicked, go watch it, because it's so powerful and I love it. And I think Casey's gonna go again on Tuesday, so I might go, I don't know. Anyway, let's see. We've touched so many beautiful topics. Just to finish up, I think it's a little bit over an hour. I want to ask you, because I've seen you've shared with me a bit of your entrepreneurial businesses or journey, and I myself struggle with that because I'm doing a podcast, but I'm doing my best to find my inner knowing. And probably a lot of people who are watching this, they also want to work on themselves, and also in their professional aspect. So how has it been for you to endeavor to go for all these different businesses that you own, and at the same time trust your inner knowing, trust your instincts, and just go for it? How has it been for you?
I think, again, there's something within me, in all of us, but there was, I've always been able to just be like, this is my truth and this is what it's going to be. I'm also innately driven, and I have always been able to use experience as like fuel. Like, all right, one of the things in that community was like, if you leave, you lose God's blessing on your life. So you'll amount to nothing. Nothing you do will be, successful, because God's not blessing your life. You've turned your back on that. And it was, to me, I was like, I'll show you. Like, I will prove to you that is not true. So before plant medicine, my driving force was very much like, I'll show you. Even when I really went like headfirst into my hairdressing career and into education, it was at the end of my marriage. And I'll never forget, I looked across the table from who is now my ex-husband, and said, like, these are my dreams. This is what I want to do. And he said, you're not good enough. And which is like a huge core wound of mine. And from that moment, I was like, watch me. And you are going to watch me do everything I said. So it was like that kind of a thing, which was a huge driver of me. It led me to do all of those things. But when the pandemic happened and all of the things I had built were pulled out from me overnight, I had the opportunity to step back from that and look at, what am I outside of accomplishment, outside of achievement, outside of this like push my way to things, and what else is driving me? What can I and how can I shift from being like a I'll show you attitude to like, these are my values. These are my ethics. This is what and not that I wasn't ethical, but you know what I mean? It just, it comes from a different place. And so I spent a sabbatical time really connecting with that. And plant medicine really helped me do that because it uncovered a lot of the stuff and really connected me to my core essence of who I really am. And out of that, I was able to align my businesses with my values. And there's just a difference. It's a subtle, it's not, for me, it wasn't subtle at all. Again, it was like very much like an FU attitude and like, I'm going to get there and I don't, it was just blinders. And now it comes from a more heart-centered place of like, what legacy do I want to leave behind? What are the values driving my projects? And I really believe that when you come from a place of adding value, everything just kind of aligns. And so that for me has been the biggest shift that plant medicine has helped me with as far as business, is it's coming from a more heart-centered place. It's not like my values have stayed the same throughout all the businesses, but just being able to form a company around those values, where those values are the core of everything that I'm doing, is just, it's alignment. It's a different kind of alignment where things just really flow. They flow and it's not easy, but when you know within like your being that this is what you're meant to be doing, for the service and benefit of others, and it just is a different way of moving through that experience.
Thank you. I love it. Oh my gosh. Okay. So before we end up, it's been a bit over an hour now. Is there something, what's an advice that you would like to share that has helped you through your life that you want to share with the audience? And where can everybody find you? I know that you sell luxury goods.
Yeah.
And you're a hairdresser, so yeah, why not tell us where we can go and make an appointment?
Yeah, well, I think if there's one thing that I can leave you with is always, always, always be true to yourself. And if you lead from that space, everything else will align. And be willing to like really sit with things. There's that, what do they say? The only way out is through, right? You have to feel it to heal it. I mean, those are like so things we hear all the time, but it really is true. And ayahuasca, and we have all these amazing tools, but it's also all within you already. You have everything within yourself, and you have that power. So really work on that connection. And once that's connected, things start to connect for you. My salon is in Del Mar. It's in Del Mar. You can find me on Instagram at Lael and Marie. And then my other business, Ecolux, I have 22 karat gold straws that are not just beautiful and bougie, but they're also naturally antimicrobial, antibacterial, hypoallergenic, and we're a social purpose corporation. So 10% of our profits is reserved for ocean conservation, as well as to support communities of survivors of abuse. So that's our first product, and we have more in the pipeline, and you can find that at ecoluxgoods.com and also at ecoluxgoods on social media. And thank you so much for having me.
I hope you had fun. It was wonderful. And thank you so much. Muchas gracias a todos, chicos. Aquí debajo en la descripción les voy a poner la información para que vayan a comprar sus popotes perroncísimos de oro. Muchísimas gracias. Y pues, muchísimas gracias. Thank you so much for being here. And we'll see you guys next time. Nos vemos después. Chao.